Anthony Albanese has left the door open to backing the Morrison government's tax cuts for higher income earners. The likely Labor leader says he will consider backing stages 2 and 3 of the plan, but is demanding the package is split up when it goes before the Parliament. Without Labor's backing, the government would need a number of crossbenchers, at least 4 Senate crossbenchers, to get the full package through. Here on the Today Show, the incoming Labor leader was discussing this issue with the Liberal frontbencher, Simon Birmingham.
Will you at least support the government's legislation for tax relief for Australians?
Well, it's a question I want to ask.
Let me tell you, we will support any proposal for this term. For this term, that
so
they have a mandate for. So you won't back the
second and third tax cuts?
We'll consider that, but let me tell you, it is a triumph of hope over experience and reality.
But isn't that
the government knows? The government knows what the economic circumstances are in 2025.
Let's go live to Perth. The Finance Minister Mathias Cormann joins us. Finance Minister, thanks very much for your time. Let's start with this comment by Anthony Albanese this morning. Are you encouraged by that?
Well, Labor should back our plan to provide income tax relief to all hard-working families around Australia. I mean, obviously, the Australian people endorsed that plan, and far be it from me to give advice to Anthony Albanese as leader of the Labor Party, but Bill Shorten's class warfare approach failed. It was rejected by the Australian people, and he would do well to move on from it and to embrace a plan which will make our economy stronger and which will provide the right incentive for all Australians to get ahead, and indeed which maintains the progressivity of our tax system, because the top 20% of income earners across Australia will continue to pay 60% of all income tax paid in Australia.
Would you consider splitting the bill to allow the package through the part that they support and then negotiate on the latter parts? I mean, you've got 3 years. There's no great rush, is there? I mean, they're willing to back the plan you've got for this particular term.
Kieran, I mean, this is like Groundhog Day. This is precisely the conversation we had in the lead-up to passing our whole income tax relief plan in 2018, where people were running the same arguments that somehow we should split the bill. No, we will not split the bill. It is a holistic plan. It is a plan to provide income tax relief to all working Australians. It prioritises low and middle-income earners in the first instance, but it also addresses bracket creep, and it simplifies our tax system. And it is a central part of our plan for a stronger economy to ensure that families around Australia have the best possible opportunity to get ahead. It can't be taken apart. It can't be dealt with in bits and pieces. It will be put to the Parliament as a whole, and we will resist splitting it. I mean, we will have a majority in the House of Representatives, and the government will not agree to split this long-term plan for income tax relief. The Australian people voted on it. The Australian people rejected the class warfare approach that was prosecuted by Bill Shorten, and Anthony Albanese and the Labor Party should now support what was clearly endorsed by the Australian people.
As you said, it has been endorsed and there is a majority in the House of Reps. 1 week on, are you, as you reflect on that, I mean, obviously many commentators, journalists, the polls, pundits, myself included, thought Labor would win. You won a majority. Were you surprised? And secondly, are you happy to stay in finance because you are the only member of cabinet that's been in the same position since the coalition won in 2013? In fact, you're the only member of the Expenditure Review Committee that's been there for that entire time as well. Do you want to continue to be the person that hasn't moved, to stay where you are?
Well, firstly, it's entirely a matter for the Prime Minister to determine where he believes I can best contribute. I mean, obviously, I've thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to serve as the Minister for Finance and have given it my absolute best. And, if that is what the Prime Minister asks me to continue to do, then, obviously I'd be absolutely excited to keep doing it. But, it's entirely a matter for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and what about the nature of the win? Was that a bit of a surprise to you, the fact that it was such a, you've got a clear majority now, and I don't think Well, very few people predicted that.
Well, you know, we were always quietly confident that once the Australian people had to make a choice between two options as to who they would trust with running the economy, who they would trust with running the country, that they would favour the team and the plan, promising stronger growth, more jobs, and indeed good budget management to ensure that all of the essential services Australians rely on are sustainably funded, you know, for the long term, compared to the alternative, the high taxing, class warfare agenda that would have made our economy weaker, would have made our country weaker, and would have left Australians worse off. So, I mean, there was a stark choice in front of the Australian people, and the Australian people voted for the team with a proven track record and a plan for the future to continue to make our economy stronger, to build a stronger economy, to secure our country's future.
We saw quite a rally on the market in the wake of the election, but still, despite that, I think reassurance across the banking sector, property and elsewhere, there's an uncertainty, isn't there, in terms of the global environment amid the ongoing and worsening trade war between Washington and Beijing?
Well, there are global economic headwinds, there are downside risks. Obviously, the trade tensions between the US and China is a key downside risk faced by the global economy and with potential implications for the Australian economy, which is, of course, precisely why this would have been the worst possible time to pursue a high-taxing agenda, which would have put us in a weaker, less competitive position internationally. And, you know, no doubt that is one of the reasons why the Australian people decided to stick with the team and the plan that is focused on building a stronger economy.
The Treasurer spoke to Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary of the United States, and urged a fast resolution to the trade row. Is this something that you and the rest of the government will be continuing to argue for in international forums like the G20, which is coming up next month in Japan?
Well, we will continue to stand up for Australia's national interest, and you know, obviously, China is our biggest trading partner. The US is a very important trading and our biggest investor, you know, foreign investor into Australia. So, I mean, these are very important relationships for us in terms of our economic future. So, you know, of course, we will continue to advocate, you know, proper resolution within the rules-based framework that is available to countries around the world of these sorts of issues. And I mean, we believe it's in our interest, it's in the world's interest. Stronger global growth is in Australia's interest. So we will continue to play our part to advocate for an appropriate resolution of these sorts of issues.
When you look at the JWS research in the AFR today, upwards of 20% said economic management was the key decision-making issue for them. I think it was 23% said tax, 11% franking credits. And there was also quite a number of people that simply preferred Morrison over Shorten in terms of the leadership battle. How do you see what were the key reasons for the coalition's success at the weekend?
Well, I mean, you know, clearly the Australian people, a majority of Australians in a majority of seats decided that they trusted Scott Morrison and our plan to build a stronger economy, you know, into the future. And they decided to favour our approach and our plan to the alternative. And, you know, obviously we believe that this will put Australia in a stronger, better position into the future.
With the Adani mine, it looks like there's going to be another step forward in that process, with Anastasia Palaszczuk announcing a timeline for approvals today. Do you welcome that? And I guess for federal Labor, it's all a bit too little too late.
Well, it's long overdue, and let's see what happens. I mean, you know, certainly the rhetoric has started to move. Let's see whether actions follow those words, because, I mean, it has been taking way too long. There has been way too much politics played about this very important project by the Labor Party, and you know, let's see what happens. We certainly, I mean, you know, this is a project which will help open the Galilee Basin in terms of, you know, coal production and exports. It will create many thousands of jobs. Very important project for Queensland. Very important project for Australia. It is subject to the strictest environmental conditions at the federal and at the state level, but it's, you know, it's time to get on with it.
And Anthony Albanese says he's going to begin a renewal within the Labor Party. We began with his comments on tax, but says they need to re-embrace the hawk tradition. What do you make of that? Will he be a more potent opposition leader to try and deal with as a government?
Well, you know, I'd certainly welcome Anthony Albanese embracing the Hawke-Keating tradition in the Labor Party. And the first thing that he should do is throw overboard the failed class warfare approach and the lurch to the socialist left under Bill Shorten. I mean, and the way to demonstrate that he's moving away and embracing the aspirational approach pursued by Bob Hawke and Paul Keating is to fully endorse our whole plan for income tax relief for all hardworking Australians, not to continue to turn Australian against Australian, not to continue to suggest to one segment in our community that the only way they can be better off is if others are worse off. So, I mean, you know, any government in Australia that holds any Australian back from being the best they can be holds all Australians back. The best way to ensure that all Australians have the best possible opportunity to get ahead is by encouraging and incentivising every single Australian to be the best they can be, to make the best contribution they can. And, you know, if Anthony Albanese is fair dinkum, and if it's not just words, then he can demonstrate that shift by coming on board and supporting our plan, which was endorsed by the Australian people at the election.
And last question, do you think that Labor underestimated the impact of the support for religious freedoms? The Prime Minister was emphatic on that. Various times he was asked about it. Do you think that that was a sleeper issue in many communities?
Well, under Bill Shorten, the Labor Party lurched way too far to the left across a whole range of issues, including the sorts of issues that you mentioned. And, you know, that's the matter for the Labor Party to assess for themselves and make judgments for themselves. But we will just continue to govern from the sensible centre. We will continue to govern for all Australians, you know, absolutely doing the best we can every single day to put Australia on the strongest possible foundation and trajectory for the future.